Hello everyone, welcome to this stream. Thanks for joining me on this Sunday. It's noon here, perhaps it's some other time for you, probably it is. This is my third stream. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. Today I thought I'd go over a couple different things. We had, of course, with Affinity, there was the Affinity 2.4 release this week, so I thought I'd go over that. And I also have a couple of your questions here that I can review too as we go on here. As per usual, last week I screwed up something with the live chat. I actually did have it saved, but I learned later on, I trimmed the beginning and end of the video just to remove some dead space, and apparently that removes the live chat replay option for people who watch in the future. So I think from now on, I'll just let that, 5 or 10 seconds in the beginning, just, hang out there. So if that kind of takes 10 extra seconds of your time, sorry, but hopefully the live chat will be preserved for the future. I do want to get like a alternate views here, like this, you'll have this view here, but I do want to switch to another one to show the chat on the screen and get people's comments featured also. So hello Amy, thanks for joining me again. And yeah, so also like this week a couple times my internet kind of went in and out. Hopefully it'll hold up for the next hour, so I'm hoping the internet's all good. So but if things just totally crash and I'm gone for like a minute or two, just assume my internet died or something like that. Hi IH from Germany, thanks for coming back again. Okay, so I thought we'd start with some of the Affinity 2.4 stuff. It came out this week, hi Matrix, and there's some pretty cool features in it. It's kind of like a point release update, 0.4, and there's some visual things and some non-visual things, so I thought I'd show you what I can here. It was update for designer, photo, and publisher. I'll mostly just be showing it through the designer interface here. So I thought one of the cooler things was this first feature, which is the make same option, which is kind of is related to like one of the alignment tools. So I'll show you what happens here. If I select all the objects, if you go to your alignment options up here, you can actually, actually added these new features down here called make same. So you can make everything the same width, and you can make everything the same height. You also have this this maintain aspect ratio. So of course, a lot of times you just want things to be the same, aspect ratio, of course, not distorted. So you can select that, and then just click apply. So that's actually a pretty cool feature, I thought, and that's something I would use a lot. I think if you click Alt, that selects it. Yeah, so if you click that, it selects it with reference to that. So I could make everything the same size as that. So you can just choose width, and then you can choose aspect ratio, and it works. You can also do angle of rotation. So actually this one is rotated at a slightly different angle here. So if I wanted to rotate everyone at that angle, select all these guys, make this my key object. So I'm alt clicking on this one to make it my key object. And let's see, I could say make the same rotation here. So everyone rotates in that direction. So definitely another nice thing for dealing with like tons of objects on the screen. If you have like dozens of things and it's just a pain to resize all of them at once or something. It's a good way to do that. Previously, you could do it through the transform menu, but I think this way is just much easier. It just fits better in with these tools here. So kind of a nice little update, I thought. Yeah. All right, let's look at the next one. Let's see. This one's also another kind of alignment one that I thought was pretty interesting. So what you can do is you can actually align with respect to an object now. So let me show you the previous way of doing it. Previously, if you just select all the objects, and then you go to your alignments, you can space horizontally or vertically. So if you do, let me move it down a little bit so you can see. Hopefully that's showing up. Yeah. So I'll select these. And previously you could just do, space horizontally. And it would basically start from the end and the beginning there. But I'll cancel that. Well, it seems like I have a lot more than I expected here. Yeah. I didn't know I had so many deleted hidden objects there. Let me just put one. All right, but now you can actually space with reference to two objects. So for example, excuse me, let's say these two squares were the distance you wanted to be apart, and you want all of them to just follow this pattern here. Well, you could select all these squares. And if you alt click on this one here, now if I actually space it horizontally, they'll be with reference to those first two. Yeah, the thing is I got like tons of extra squares there for some reason. I think I accidentally doubled them. Let me just delete these. Just make a little bit change, yeah. I think I accidentally deleted it, so it caused so many extra boxes to appear. All right, as far as I know, I just have 5 boxes. Okay, so I can do this. I can all click on this one here. And now if I do the space horizontally here, they space with respect to that chosen one and the first one here. Yeah, Michael says the new alignment spacing options work a lot more like he's expecting from other illustration apps. Yeah, I think it's a nice feature. It's definitely more flexible now to give you kind of more power in how you want to split things up. Because before it's just that beginning and end. So yeah, so you can also do it with respect to the end one here. So let's say I wanted to do these two. So I select all of them, Alt click on this. And then the only difference is that up here, what you do is you control click on this button now. So control click, and now it does it with respect to the right side. So that difference is just when you control click on the button up there. So it's a nice little feature, I think. Definitely kind of a little improvement on that tool in general. So let's look at the next stuff. So this is one that existed in Affinity Photo, but apparently is new in Affinity Designer and Publisher. It is new there. So you may have used this already in Affinity Photo, but now it's here, and that is the layer states. So essentially you can kind of toggle the visibility of your layers and save them as a preset. So for example, let's say I just want to have one with the squares or the circles selected. So I'll hide these guys. And now what I can do is I can actually save this view. So I can go to Window, States, and I can just click this button here and say Add New Captured State. So maybe I want to call it my circles state. So now if I have a bunch of random stuff going on, I work on my project and I have all sorts of things just kind of selected and not selected. If I click on this play button here, I just go back to that saved visibility options of the layers there. So I could create another one. I could create one for the blue squares. So let's say I want to hide all these ellipses. I want to hide that. I want to show my squares. And I could save this as a state. So I'll say Add New Captured State here, clicking on this button. And I'll call this my squares. And I'll click OK. Let me expand this window here. So I have these two saved states, and it's just saving the visibility options of the layers. So I can view all my circles, or I can view all my squares. And I saw like one of the Affinity demos, a common example of this was if you had different languages, like maybe you had one title in German and another in English, and you just wanted to have a toggle between them, but you wanted to keep your layout the same and all the graphics and stuff like that. It seemed like a pretty good use case for that. Another thing you can do is these queries here. So you can actually select based on certain things. I don't know why it's not expanding here. Oh, you can add a query. So add new query. I'll just call it test. But what you can do is you can filter on the different objects. So maybe I just want to have my text visible. So I'll say that. And then what I can do is I can run that query. Just click on the button there. And, well, it selects it. It doesn't actually make it visible, so I'll do that. So it's there. So if I click on the test thing, it's selecting my text options here. So that's kind of another useful option there. And you can filter on all these different properties, whether or not you can add colors to the layers, different types, filters, all that sort of stuff. So easy way to select your objects quickly. Let's look at the next one here. Lock children, yeah. This one messed me up a little bit. So basically, this is kind of another little UI thing. Previously, you could click on lock children, and to show you what I have here, actually, let me undo this. So what I have here is a image, and I'm going to put it into this ellipse here. So I can drag it in. I'll move it over. So you can see that the usual behavior is I move my ellipse around and my circle moves within it. An option you could do in the past already was you could click lock children, and you can move the circle around independently to kind of get a different view of it. It's effectively the same as just clicking in and moving your image around by itself, but it's a little bit different because you can actually move the ellipse around. But they added a new option here where when you're moving around, if you hold the space button, you can move around without locking the child in place. So I'm just holding the space button right now to do this. Previously, that wasn't an option. You would have to manually click this button here. One thing to remember is don't hold space and then try to move, because that'll move your canvas. So you want to actually click, move, and then hold space, and that will move your your parent object around. So Pedro, I'm reading your question right now. Will it only export what is chosen from the state? So he's asking for the layer states one, the previous one. Will it only export what is chosen from the state? I think it's basically you're just turning the visibility on and off. So if it's not visible on your screen, it won't be there. So like if I go back to my layer states here, let's see here, circles. Let's turn on circles. So if I export this, let's export that. Why is it not selecting? Oh, because I'm selecting that one. Layer states, yeah. File, export. So yeah, if I export it, you'll just see that one. So if I cancel this, so you can see it's just the circles. It's just because the visibility is selected. So if I cancel this, if I go down to squares, if I do that, then if I do file export, you'll see the squares. So hopefully that answers your question. It's just a shortcut for toggling visibility on and off. And when you export it, you'll see whatever is visible by default on your screen. It doesn't matter if, even if I turn these things on and off, if I turn this back on, if I do export again, that's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see that there. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. We talked about this, the lock children option. Let's go down. So yeah, lock children, it's a useful feature. So it's just kind of a little shortcut they added to move the ellipse or the parent object around independently. No problem. You're welcome, Pedro. Permanent bounding box. Yeah, this is one that, again, another little kind of tip, another little GUI shortcut. So previously, we have a bounding box around an object. If I turn it around, you could press the period key right here, and you'd have this bounding box like that. But the thing is, when you clicked off and you click back onto it, it would be reset to its original one. So what you can do now is, if you rotate it somehow, if you press period, you create this new bounding box. Then you can press control period, and basically if you click off of it and you click back on, your bounding box is still this new orientation here. So I can alt click, and you can see the bounding boxes here are permanently set, even if I click off of it and then click back on. So again, another little shortcut, kind of a convenient thing that they added there. I'll undo this. Let's see what we got next on the list. Yeah, this is another just kind of a little GUI one that's a nice little shortcut trick. So previously, if you selected something with the move tool, you could double click on it and you'd go to the node tool. They just made it now so you can, if you're in the node tool, you can double click on it and go back to the move. And it's a nice little thing. It was always something that kind of annoyed me when you from here you can go to here, and then you want to double click and go back to like move things around because you don't want to do this kind of thing. So you can just double click on it and then you can move around now. So again, very short little thing, but it's probably something you'll start using a lot, and then you'll wonder like how come it wasn't there from the beginning. So I think it's a nice little thing. A lot of times like I'll copy and paste something and it'll be in the node tool option, and I just want to quickly like move it, So I just double click on it and now it's back to the move tool. So a short but sweet one. Sometimes those are the most useful things. So lock insertion points. Yeah, so this one, let's look at how it used to work. So if I copy and paste here and I drag, it's behind the object. Well, I have it locked now. Let me turn it off. I don't know if I can demonstrate the way it used to work because I upgraded. But basically now, when you copy and paste something, you can choose where you want it to appear in front of or behind the object. So if I say behind, it'll be behind it. And I can copy and paste again. And I forgot to actually lock it. I have to press, actually, yeah. So you have to press Control on this to lock it. Now I can do Control C, Control V, and it'll be behind it. And it stays that way too. So I can say Control V, Control C, Control V, and it's behind it. So every time I paste it, it's actually gonna be behind it. And the old way, that actually was hard to do. Actually, the old way, I guess, is you just make it so it's not permanently selected. So I think it just does it once. Let me see if this replicates the old way. Yeah, so the old way, it would just go back to the beginning. So if I do this, it's on top of it again. So the new thing is just like you can permanently set this option here to permanently have it insert behind, and you just do that by control clicking on it so it always stays there. So again, a minor little thing. I never use this one too much to begin with, but apparently it's a nice little UI feature for some people. So that's the lock insertion points. It's kind of the one that's kind of always on the side here, and I don't really see it that much, so, but maybe some people use it a lot. So the other thing was the export persona, and I guess this would be a good segue into the Q&A part because I got a comment. Well, I'll save that for the Q&A part because there's something about it I want to mention. So the export persona, the new file name parameters. So DWG and DXF support, that's not something I use too much, but I remember a couple years ago I was looking into this, and let me see if I can show you guys something. Cell SVGs. If you look at them, a lot of people do offer this format for, I can't remember what it's called. It was the DWG and DXF support, because these are kind of what people use for a lot of these cutting machines and things like that. So if you look at certain ones, certain popular listings, they will actually have DXF support here. And I remember several years ago, I was trying to look into how to do this, and I couldn't find an easy way of how to do it, I think, without like Illustrator or something like that. So I think now if you're doing this kind of thing, like, and if you're selling SVGs or cut files or something like that, a lot of times you can just offer the SVG, but if you do want, you can export it to DXF now using Affinity Designer. So I would say just offer the support for it, you know. If you're selling digital files, it's good to offer as many file formats as possible. So this might be something to look at, this format for the, let's see, the DXF here and the DWG. All right, so those were the Affinity 2.4 additions that I thought were interesting. There's a couple other ones with like, you know, extra camera support, and there's some HDR thing too. But for the most part, I think, you know, those are the ones that I find the most interesting, where it's kind of something that actually improves your workflow a little bit. Let me look at your questions now. So I made a slide for questions and answers. Has anyone upgraded to 2.4 yet? If you have any thoughts on it. So one of the questions I got this week was in relation to 2.4. It was from Julie, and she commented and she said that this export feature for the new tags doesn't seem to be working. So let me show you what's actually happening there. So let me do a new file. I'll just call this test. So the new feature, which was kind of interesting, is if you go to the export persona, you can actually now you can build up this title here. If you click on this, you could always do this, but these options before for the file name and the document name weren't here. So one thing I thought was, well, maybe I just didn't save this, because I noticed an issue here where it actually wasn't adding that. So let me save this. I'll call this test 2. And if I click on this, theoretically you should be able to add the document name here and say done, but it actually doesn't add it there. And I posted on the Affinity forums, this is what Julie's question is. She's saying, hey, I added that in there and it's not showing. And I noticed the same thing. So yeah, I posted on the Affinity forums. Let me see if I can find that post here, if you're curious. Yeah, I don't have it here at the moment, but I did log a bug report with Affinity to see if they could actually look into this issue, because I thought it was kind of strange. It wasn't actually working. But if I save the file, if I close it, and if I reopen it, again, if I can see over my mic, let's go here. Now it seems like it actually works. You can see test 2 AF design, whereas before I just had background. So that's I think that's kind of a bug. It seems like for some reason it's not working on the first try, so hopefully it will work. So Julie, I'll update the post, and I'll post a little update if they get back to me. I know you said you've had some communication with them, so we'll see what they say. I like I said, I've had the same problem as you. I haven't been able to quite get it to work, so yeah, we'll see from there. Kendall, I'm reading your comment here. So you're saying you're disappointed that the states aren't included with the iPad version. have I heard if they'll do that? Yeah, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, scroll up here. It would be nice. Sometimes the iPad versions don't have it. I just don't know. Again, you can post on their forums and say it's something you'd like to see. Hopefully they'll add it in, but sometimes, you know, they don't give all the features to the iPad versions. Unfortunately, I haven't heard what their future plans are yet. So yes, we'll see. So another question I got from DripX Streetwear, excuse me, last week, she asked about, she had a request, or I'm sorry if I said she, I'm not sure, but the question was, could I do some videos about pixel sizing on designs for print and websites, such as logo size, headers, pretty much a video on pixel sizing and why. And she says, they say, hope this makes sense. Yeah, your question definitely makes sense. So there's a couple different ways to look at this. One is pixel resolution, and the other is aspect ratios, which are kind of two, they're related, but they're kind of different in a way. One way to kind of approach this is artboards and the export persona. So for example, let me close this. I'll give a little demo right now. Let me do a new file here. Let's say 10. I'm gonna change this anyway, but yeah. So, you know, a common situation may be, okay, you have a business or some type of social media account and you need to create stuff for it. So let's say there's like a Facebook header you need to create, and there's a Shopify header you need to create, right? Well, on a basic level, you know, since things are vector, let's say it's, you know, my cool business. And, you know, you just want to, let's say this is your logo, okay? And you have some nice font. I don't know. Let's say that. Cool business, okay? You can export this at different resolutions, of course. So you can say File, Export. And by default, we have this resolution here. If we need to do something that would say twice as big, we could do ×2. So that's an option. So again, because it's vector, we can have it be any size we want. I'll cancel this. Now, what you can also do is have the export persona do that. So if you go to the export persona, I have this artboard here, and this is my 1x size. I can add another version, so maybe I'll call this 2x. So maybe Facebook is twice as big as Shopify or something. So I can do it in here. You can actually delete this. You can say Facebook header, done. And maybe this one is my Shopify header or something like that. So this is just for different resolutions. Again, maybe one is mobile or something like that. Now, the tricky part is when things are different dimensions too. Like for example, different aspect ratios. So let me go back here. So for example, maybe we have one where it's like our horizontal display, but then we have another one where it's more of a square display. And then maybe, you know, maybe you have a logo that's like this kind of style. Again, not the greatest bit of graphic design here on the fly, but so you have these two situations. And you can, again, say, okay, maybe this is like part of a business card or something. On the export persona, you can go there and you can actually have different ones. So this is artboard 2. So where's my artboard 2 here? I can also export it at different sizes and resolutions here. So yeah, basically different sizes. But this could be, for example, again, this could be a different format. You know, same logo, same business or something, but different format. So maybe this is your Etsy shop header or something, and this one is again your Facebook header. Now things even get a little more confusing because sometimes you do want to have one file that you can use basically anywhere. And in that case, I talked a little bit about this last week when I was showing the phones. You really want to understand the safe zones of your image. And let me show you an example here. A very common example I've seen is something like a YouTube, the header for a YouTube page. So this is tricky because that one image needs to look good on desktop, on mobile, on laptop, tablet, all these different formats, right? So let me show you here. So if you can see this, So this is I think this is a correct one. I just found this off the internet. But something like this would be a template for, say, a YouTube thumbnail on, not a thumbnail for the video, but on your header for your YouTube channel page. So what you can see here is that you basically have a safe area in the middle, which is like anything in this central blue area will be seen on all devices, okay? And then you have these other areas where it's kind of like maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't. It really depends on whether the user is on that device. So of course, in this situation, the key thing you want to do is have your important stuff here. So when you're designing something of this nature, you want to have the important part right there, of course. And the other parts of it, you want to have relatively, interesting, but not vital. Maybe it's just a pattern that repeats. Maybe it's something else. But you're going to commonly have this kind of extra area that you need to fill with something that's just, again, interesting, but not important. Whereas you want to put your important part in the middle here. So hopefully that kind of starts to answer your question. I think this is something to remind people of the question, targeting various sites and logo sizes and header sizes. This is kind of an approach to it. I can make a deeper video on it, but this is one way I would look at it. One, different artboards. If you have different ratios, you can have your artboards can be different ratios. You can leverage the export persona to export things at different resolutions. And also, you can look at your different templates and see, what are the common things that will fit everywhere. So yes. So let me just catch up on some of your comments. Let's see. Let's see. So Matrix Tech says, I keep watching videos. I feel there are many parts of the tool I understand, but I have trouble applying it and being creative with Designer. It's all still overwhelming. So my original focus was to do color and luminance adjustments and then 3D print images with HueForge. Yeah, so I think one thing that helps me do things is there's this concept of master studies, which is to kind of learn about a new art style or a new design style or something. Find things you like. Maybe find 5 examples that seem kind of doable, and perhaps just try to recreate those in Designer. And as you try to and I don't say copy them because you're going to sell them or anything. I'm just saying copy them for learning purposes. So again, this is the concept of a master study where you just look at something and you try to recreate it and you kind of try to see what did the artist or designer do. Maybe you don't have the fonts, but maybe you kind of look into your fonts and you find one that kind of matches it. Maybe you notice something about how the drop shadows are used. Maybe you notice the relative sizes of things or the colors they use, the shapes. And you just as you kind of do that a couple of times, some of those things just kind of become part of your own vocabulary that you can just kind of pull up on the fly when you want to. So I would look into that. Just find examples of things you like. You talk about luminance adjustments and those kind of thing. I know exactly what you mean, like lighting adjustments. But if you know of people that do that, maybe just try to see what they do and just try to recreate it. And again, don't pass it off as your own work, of course. But that type of thing just kind of puts the skills inside of you, I think. So hopefully that could help a little bit. So let's look at some more questions. I got one more. So this is from Amy. I think, Amy, you're here, right? Yes. Oh, you say it's windy as heck in Missouri, messing with your internet. Okay. Yeah, we had a really huge, pretty vicious rain last night in Massachusetts here. And yeah, I was glad my windows stayed in one piece, to tell you the truth. So, but it's pretty fine now. So hopefully the internet here is working well. Hopefully yours gets back online for the most part. But you say, I feel overwhelmed working on these things. Any tips on how to avoid that? Avoid feeling overwhelmed. And you said you definitely have some huge responsibilities here with your mom and things and your kid. So my thoughts. Yeah, so I'm not exactly in your situation, but I think one of the things I try to think about is essentially the types of tasks I have to do and when I'm best at doing them. So for the most part, I try to think of the things I do as in 2 kind of categories. One is creative things or things that require some type of thought, like concentration and thinking to actually solve a problem. And the other is kind of just more mindless tasks that just need to be done. I just need to sit down and do them. And it's not really complicated, but it just kind of is a thing that I need to finish, right? And I know for me, like my morning is my prime time. So that's when I try to do the actual creative things that I want to have like my full willpower on, because it would just be a waste to do the mindless tasks in the morning. I consider, my quintessential example for like a mindless task is like my monthly accounting or something like that, right? Like there's nothing new or creative about it. It's kind of always the same thing. I know what to do. It's just a thing I just have to do. It takes like an hour or something. I would never do that in the morning during my best time, right? Because that's like, it would just be like a waste. It'd be like using a Ferrari to like go pick up milk at the, at the supermarket or something. I mean, maybe some people do that, right? But you want to use your high power time for what is your priorities. And that's kind of like the way I've tried to think about it lately is, managing my energy, as some people say, like when do you have the most energy? So then you do that for the more important things. And, and then kind of save the more repetitive things for the other times. Now you mentioned you have lots of interruptions too. That's definitely a hard thing. I don't know what that's like to have, a kiddo constantly interrupting you or something like that, but I'm sure it's quite a challenge. I guess I would say, for your purposes, I would say, are there tasks that are more easy to pick up and put down than others? Maybe if something that doesn't require a lot of, if it's something you can just kind of like stop and start, maybe that's what you kind of do during the day when you know you're going to be interrupted more. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I'm a moderator on a Discord forum for kind of artistic stuff, and we have a channel for artistic wellness. And this is one of the most common topics I see is just people feeling very overwhelmed with things. And especially now with social media where you see people just banging out, you think they're like creating a new image every single day or a new painting every day or something like that. And you're just like, how are these people so productive, And then you look and you find out they're just kind of recycling the same, 10 images every week or so. But yeah, it can definitely, with social media and stuff like that, it gets harder, to kind of keep perspective on some of these things. So yeah, but that's kind of what I try to do. I try to think about, to the degree that you can control your time and what you do throughout the day. I try to think about, what's the best time of day to do certain things. But yeah, so that was basically, that was all the questions I had from the last week. Certainly if you guys have anything more. Christoph, hello from Poland. Thanks for joining. This week I filmed some videos on, Creative Fabrica has a new design tool. So I was just kind of testing that out. And I'll be releasing a video on that, just kind of give a tutorial on it. I think they're trying to compete with Canva, essentially. I can show you that here. I'll just show you a little thing. I mean, I don't think it's going to compete with a desktop suite like Affinity, of course, but it is kind of useful for the web-based tool. So, of course, Valentine's Day just happened, so it's like an ocean of pink here. But let's click on. So they have this tool. Okay, my internet cut out for a second, but hopefully I'm back. So yeah, so I was just saying, I made a video on, I'm going to release a video on the Creative Fabrica's design studio here. And, like I said, it's a web-based tool, so it's kind of limited, but I think it's, hopefully it gives Canva a run for its money at some point. It doesn't now. But what I think is interesting is they definitely have tons of templates and stuff here. I mean, again, everything's kind of Christmas oriented or Easter oriented because that's the next holiday, but there's lots of cool stuff for like social media and all that kind of stuff. They have their Spark AI tool. I create a few things with it, but I actually prefer like Mid-Journey if I'm going to actually formally create stuff here. So what was something I created? Let me show you guys. Yeah, I made this little poster here just as a demonstration. And it's kind of tricky to get all these things going. Like definitely this would be a million times easier in Affinity Designer, but for a web-based tool, I thought it was okay. There's still some like little issues that I think could be fixed. They have a lot of this kind of programmer speak over here, right? I think it's just like internal tags of the layers and stuff like that. So you can't rename the layers, unfortunately. And it's not fully integrated with like the Creative Fabrica images yet. You actually, if you want to like use things, you have to download them and re-upload them to the design studio here. So that's something I hope changes. No problem, Amy. You're welcome. Michael, I'm reading your comment here. So Michael said, I recently made a one-page document with Designer, and I was wondering if I should have used Publisher instead. For something with a single page or just a few pages, how do you choose between them? Yeah, I actually think a single page is fine with Designer. If you're doing multiple pages, then I would definitely say like Publisher is the way to go. If I was just doing a one-page pamphlet, I might just do Designer. The Publisher has a little bit more sophisticated stuff with text flowing options. One thing I can show you is Publisher has better options with text flowing options. Let me show you one thing that's cool in Publisher that you can't do in Designer. So I'll create a document here. I showed this last week, but with the frame text tool. So I can add a box here. And if I get some text, let's say moon. I'm just doing my Wikipedia text here. Let me just copy and paste this. So if I paste text in here, I can actually because it overflows this area, you see this red eye, which that happens in everything. But in Publisher, you can click this triangle here, and then you can go and you can add more of the text there. And it's actually really nice the way it reflows text like that. Whoops, don't need that one. So for example, if I resize this, you can see it's automatically reflowing the text to certain areas there. And this is something that doesn't quite work in a Designer. So this is actually a really nice feature. So yeah, I'd say if you have advanced text options and it's multiple pages, definitely Publisher. If it's one page, you can probably get away with doing it in Affinity Designer, unless you have like really sophisticated text layout you're trying to do. So Kendall, I'm reading your comment. Yeah, Kendall says he generally uses multiple artboards with Designer for multiple versions of logos. And for multiple pages, yeah, he uses Publisher. So yeah, that's what I would say. For multiple pages, definitely start thinking Publisher. Close this. So I made some other videos. I shot some other videos yesterday. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, I did a blend modes introduction video because I have a video on my channel. It's about an hour and a half long on the blend modes, but I've never made a proper just like 101 10-minute introduction to blend modes. So I did that. So hopefully that will kind of be a more gentle onboarding for some people than the longer video. So that was kind of my intention, to just give a crash course in blend modes. Like I said, the video will probably be about 10 minutes long, but that should get people started on that. And then I was also talking about the difference between, in another video, the difference between adjustment layers and blend modes. Because that's a question I've gotten a couple times, like when do you use blend modes and when do you use adjustment layers? And there's definitely some overlap between them. You can do some things in both, but I thought it'd be worth of an explanation. Let me bring up some of the files I was doing for that one. The blend modes versus adjustment layers. Just navigate to that. Yeah. So for example, for something like darkening, you could use both an adjustment layer and a blend mode for this. And I explained this more in the video, so I'll go in, there'll be more detail there. But for example, you can select the adjustments here. And you have there's many ways to darken an image, many different algorithms too that give you slightly different results. But you could do brightness and contrast, for example. And you could make it darker using the adjustment, assuming I can click on it. So that's one way of doing it there. Now, of course, with a blend mode, you can't really, well, you can, but it's kind of a more advanced technique. You can't really blend an image with itself in one step. So what you need to do usually is typically put something above it to actually add darkness. So you can draw a square here, and then I would go and say multiply or something like that, or choose one of these other ones. Maybe a linear burn is more of an example there. So that kind of shows you one of the different ways of doing it. Kind of one of the conceptual differences between adjustment layers and blend modes. The fact that the adjustment image kind of has like this extra option attached to it, whereas with the blend, if you want to use a darkening blend mode, you're going to be using typically two layers together. Now, there's another example I wanted to show here. Yeah, so this is another example. One of the reasons, one of the things adjustment layers do a lot better than blend modes is they allow you to target certain areas of an image and a lot better. So for example, let's say I wanted to change the color of the flowers here. Well, I could easily, let me delete this. I could add an adjustment there, so I could add HSL adjustment. And I can rotate it around and this changes all of the colors. But I can also just target the yellow color specifically. So I can click on the yellow here and I can rotate it and around something else. Let's say I want to make it pink or something, right? So you can see the adjustment layers typically give you much more fine-grained control over these types of things. Now, how could I do that with a blend mode? Well, it's much more tricky. I could color the whole thing, make it red and do color. But that doesn't have the effect, obviously, we want. So I'll take that, I'll delete that. I could do something like, well, okay, I'll trace all my flowers here and do this type of thing. Of course, I'm just doing a really fast job here. And then I could make it red, and then I could do the color. Where's color? But this is not going to, again, this is going to be incredibly tedious and very hard to do. So I think a lot of times when you have these kind of fine-grained situations, adjustment layers are going to be something that you want to consider first. However, it's not always the case there because I think blend modes give you a lot of control with the paintbrush tool. So let me show you another example, which was a good one. Yeah, let's look at this one here. So for example, in this case, let's say I just wanted to color her eyes. Well, even though I just showed you an example where the adjustment layer is really good at making a fine-grained change, actually the blend modes are really good in this situation. So if I go to the pixel persona, if I zoom in, let's change this to actual color here. And now using a brush, let's give her a blue eyes. So Dune just came out, so we'll give her blue eyes, I guess. I haven't seen Dune 2 yet, but I'm familiar with the mythology and the blue eyes. So you can see in this case, we actually used the blend mode and we're actually able to get really precise control. So it's never cut and dry, this question of like when to use an adjustment layer versus blend modes. Sometimes an adjustment layer gives you better control. Sometimes a blend mode with pixel persona gives you better control. So it's definitely kind of a thing you get more experience with, and you kind of learn how to judge that a little bit more. But yeah. So far those were all your questions. If you have anything else, I can answer. I'll give you guys another minute or so to type in there. And of course, always if there's any topics or anything you want me to go over, feel free to leave a comment on this video or any videos. Like I said, I'm doing my I made my phone case design video and I'm waiting for the samples to arrive so I can finish it off. Then I can like record the samples and publish the video. But that'll be kind of a different video because it's gonna be more about design actually than technically how to use the tool. It's gonna be more about how to actually make a print-on-demand product, in this case being a phone case. So I'm looking forward to that one. I'm curious to see how it will do out there. But yeah. Close these. I think Affinity is going to be releasing updates smaller but more frequently is what I heard over the last couple. They said that a couple months ago, so we may see 2.5 soon, within the next couple months or so, and kind of get these small incremental improvements. So Kendall, I'm reading your comment. Yeah, you usually just play around to see what works best for the blend modes. And you get surprised. Yeah, so there are some that I know exactly what they do, and there are some where I just randomly check it, and if it looks cool, I do it. So typically the darken and lighten ones I know, the contrast ones I know. These ones, I forget what this is. I think they're generally called the difference operations or the comparative operations. I know what difference does in the sense that it will actually subtract two images from each other. And same thing with subtract. Divide can be a little random. That one I don't intuitively understand like what the result will actually look like. Conceptually I know it, but like what it will actually do on screen, I don't know. Hue, saturation, color, and luminosity are pretty good. Hue and color, the difference between hue and color is that hue doesn't have the ability to color in black and white or grayscale, whereas color actually will. Other than that, they're fairly straightforward. And yeah, these ones are definitely kind of random. These ones down below. I think these are specific to Affinity, the average, negation, reflect, glow, and contrast negate. Those are ones that I would just kind of try and see if they look cool, and if they do, keep it, you know. And then at the bottom you have the erase. That's a good one to know. Like if you just want to chop through your image with a shape or something, erase is a good way to do that. So yeah. So with that, we're at about the 45-minute mark. So thanks again, guys, for watching. I'll remember not to trim the video today so that hopefully it doesn't destroy the live chat. And next time I'm going to try to get another scene going so we can actually put your comments on screen. Sometimes the stuff is hard to test without an actual stream in progress, and I always like to have things tested, but I may have to just test it on stream next time to see how it goes. But that's really all I have for today. So once again, thanks for joining, and I plan to be on again next week, so I'll see you guys then. Hope you come.